When you think about the most expensive cities in the world, which cities do come to your mind? Singapore, Paris, and New York are some of the world's most expensive metropolises. But now Tel Aviv is the most expensive city in the world. Before we continue, please hit the subscribe button and touch the bell icon. Israel's largest city recently gained international attention as the most expensive place to live in the world, according to research firm Economist Intelligence Unit's global ranking. This country has been pushed to the top because of a rapidly appreciating national currency and supply chain disruptions that increased the price of goods and services. In Tel Aviv, prices rose 2.2% over the last year, and, more significantly, the currency has appreciated rapidly, making many common goods and services more expensive than anywhere else in the world. According to the report, which compiled a cost of living index across 173 cities, Tel Aviv is now the second most expensive city for transportation costs, and it is now the second most expensive city for alcohol. In US dollars, an artisan hamburger in the city can set you back $18, a cocktail is $15 to $17, and a gallon of gas costs $5.78. For city residents, this means a noticeable difference in the cost of everyday activities like lunch. It varies from place to place, but there are a few restaurants where there's more than a 10% increase, says Danielle Bett, a communications consultant. According to her, rising transportation costs often force her to choose the cheapest option. She cycles and takes public transportation over driving or taking a taxi. The high cost of living in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv has long faced an affordability crisis. Rising housing, transportation, and everyday goods costs have worsened inequality and pushed people out of the city. Most of this is due to the appreciation of Israel's currency, the shekel. In November 2021, the shekel reached 32 cents against the dollar, its highest exchange rate for over 2 decades. Researcher Bett says that the cost of housing has been a point of contention in Tel Aviv for years. Over the past decade, housing prices in Israel have nearly doubled as more investors entered the real estate market and fewer plots of land were available for construction. This pace of change didn't cease during the pandemic. Data from Israel's Central Bureau of Statistics shows that rents increased 3.3% from a year prior in the third quarter of 2020. As housing costs rise, some young people have moved out of the city and into cheaper suburbs nearby. Inequality has also deepened between wealthier residents of the northern part of the city and those in the south of the city, who are generally lower income and come from minority backgrounds. Bett says she is concerned that these economic stresses could threaten the city's fundamental identity as a diverse and welcoming community. The thing that people love about Tel Aviv is how diverse it is and how young it is. But the people who are most likely to suffer from poverty or social injustice are LGBTQ people and minorities. If those people can't afford to live here anymore, it's going to completely change the whole experience of the city. Cities everywhere are becoming more expensive. Prices have been driven up not only in Tel Aviv but also in many other cities. In fact, cities across the world have seen particularly acute inflation, driven in large part by the pandemic's disruption of supply chains. In response to shortages and rising freight costs, retailers pass those costs on to consumers. The authors of the report found that across all 173 cities assessed, the average local currency inflation rate was 3.5% from September through November 2021, which was the highest in the last 5 years. Researchers assessed the relative cost of living in each city by analyzing the prices for a basket of over 200 goods and services, except the cost of housing, and comparing those prices to those for New York City as a baseline. Tel Aviv received an index score of 106, up to 6 points from the baseline. Other cities in the ranking that saw big increases in the cost of living were Tehran, Iran, Reykjavik, Iceland, Kiev, Ukraine, Auckland, New Zealand, and Moscow, Russia. Researchers are counting on supply chains to begin returning to normal and central banks begin to raise interest rates to combat inflation in the second half of 2022.